I want to introduce you to my new book, Polymath Producer, How to Master the Language of Music Production. Now, this is a test copy, hence why there's a gray line here, but this book will actually be available on Amazon on the 28th of November, 2024. If you're watching this after that date, it will already be available on Amazon. But if you watch this video, I'm going to show you how to get free access to the PDF version of this book so you can read it for free. But let me just take you through what this book is about, so you know what you're about to read. So right here, you've got the 4 levels of the language of music production that I've created for this book. So right here, you've got the building blocks of tracks. These are techniques. Okay, this is level 1. This is like the words of the language. Okay, this is where you learn how to chunk music production into building blocks. And chunking is one of the best ways to master a skill. And that's what we're going to learn how to do with music production in this part. Then we've got the core principles of arranging. So this is like the grammar of the language. The core principles of arranging are in every single track that has ever been produced. I've analyzed thousands of the greatest songs of all time, and all of them have these 10 core principles. And I'm going to show you examples of each of these principles in songs with timestamps so that you can read this, literally hear the principle at play, and then it will activate in your mind. All techniques live within these core principles. So once you know techniques, once you know how to chunk the craft into building blocks, and then you know the core principles of arranging, then you're well on your way to master the language of music production. Then we get to stems thinking. Now, this is where you learn how to master layering in your tracks. This is when you actually layer words and grammar together to create full musical works, full musical arrangements. And when you do this, when you learn stems thinking, you actually learn how the masters of the craft have layered their tracks. And this will allow you to not overproduce, not underproduce, but just get it just right. And that's what you learn here. So you learn how to chunk the skill into building blocks. Then you learn the core principles of arranging. Then you learn how to master layering. Then we move to sonics. Okay, now sonics is all about recording, editing, mixing, and mastering. Okay, now this is like the pronunciation of the language. This is where we learn how to get to an industry standard in mixing and mastering. And we learn that through analyzing the greatest music of all time. So what we actually do is invert the learning process. We actually analyze the great music of all time. And then by doing that, we're actually discovering what works in those tracks, what makes these tracks so good. We analyze music through these 4 levels. And then once you've done that, you'll have this framework in your mind when you create your own music productions of how the great productions of all time have been used. And then, this is where it gets exciting, you actually can grab building blocks from every single song that you've ever analyzed, every single resource that you've ever analyzed. And then you start to cross-pollinate all of these building blocks together. And this is where you actually start to create your own original sounds, because you can transcend genre. When you know these core principles of arranging, you transcend genre, because when you discover that all genres have the same core principles, but it's the techniques that are built on those genres that create the genres, and then you find out the genre is actually defined after it is created, then you realize that you have no limits to what you can do, no limits to what you can create. So when you learn this, that's what activates in your mind. That's what you will have the ability to do with your own intention. You can actually intentionally create original sounds by doing this. Now, after all of that, after you've learned the 4 levels of the language of music production, you've learned how to create your original sound, then we get to transcendence. This is when you transcend the mind and you let all of this flow through you. Because when you master this language enough, when it's in you, when it becomes a part of you, when you become a polymath producer, you will then be able to transcend all of this. You will allow it to flow through you. That's the point that we're getting you to. And that's when you really master the language of music production, is when it becomes a part of you and you can just let it flow through you. You'll be able to make arrangements in record time. Creativity will just flow through you. And that's the point that we want to get you to. So that's everything that you will learn in this book. You will learn the exact step-by-step system of how to do all of this. When you go to polymathproducer.com and you get access to the free PDF version, you'll also get access to all additional resources from this book. So you get access to a school community where every Polymath producer in the world will be hanging out. This is the place where everyone will be sharing their insights, what they've discovered from their analysis, what they've discovered from using everything within this book. Really, it's going to be a home to all Polymath producers who want to master the language of music production. And that's where they're all going to hang out, is this school group. You also get access to additional resources, like a program version of all the action steps in this book, so you can actually see me do the action steps. And then you'll have all the resources in one spot, all the music references mentioned in the book in one spot, all the action steps mentioned in this book in one spot. So you'll be able to really follow along with me, along with this textbook, and get the results to master the language of music production. With each part in this book, I started with this diagram. This is where you are. So in this part, we're in the overview of the Polymath producer system. So this is where we learn the overview of the philosophy, the language, and this gives you the big picture overview of the book. Then we move to the primary frameworks. These are the frameworks that are on the front cover that I mentioned. So all of these primary frameworks will be going through one by one, and this is where you master the analysis frameworks. Then in the music creation section, this is where we actually learn how to use these analysis frameworks and aim them at our own music, and we'll be creating through those frameworks. Then you'll learn how to create your own original sounds, and then we get to transcendence, and this is where we actually transcend the system and let it flow through us. So at the start of each part, I start each one off with a story that tells you how I discovered all of this. And then it gets to the information sections. And this is where I show you all of the information that you need to know to master each level that I take you through. So how to learn techniques, principles, stems thinking, and sonics. So I show you through diagrams, graphs, all of that, pictures, how to master this. And then at the end of each part, you will see there's action steps. And when you take action on these steps, you will master the language of music production by doing this. So this is a proven blueprint I've used on myself. I've literally experimented with everything that I could to find the optimum way to master the craft of music production, to master the language of music production. Part 2, techniques. It'll take you through how to chunk music production into building blocks. And again, lots of diagrams, very accessible to read and understand. I've made it as simple as possible to understand so that it's very clear. Action steps, technique framework. Part 3, core principles of arranging. This is one of the best sections in the book. There's over 100 references in this that literally give you the timestamps. Listen to this timestamp, listen out for this information. It's going to activate in your mind that easily by reading this. And that's why I highly recommend getting the physical copy of this when it comes out on Amazon, because then you'll be able to actually use it as a textbook, read it in front of you, listen to the references, and get the results. Then we get to part 4, stems thinking. This is how to master layering in your arrangements. Then we get to part 5, sonics, analysis level 4. So this is how we master sonics. Then we've got original sound. It shows you how to cross-pollinate any building block into your own original sounds. Then you got transcendence. This is the blueprint that I wish I had when I started. This is the meta, okay? It's not just techniques like here's how you use a compressor, here's how you use EQ. This is the meta. This is the foundation of everything. And my goal here, my mission, is to get this philosophy, get this system to as many music producers as possible. And that is why I've made PDF access to this book for free. I want to get this to as many producers as possible. Okay, I want to get this system, this philosophy to as many producers as possible. This is a language. You can actually use this language to communicate with other producers. You can communicate with artists. You can communicate with anyone in the field with this language, okay? This simplifies everything. When people start using this language, it's going to make things way easier for the entire production chain. So go to polymathproducer.com, get access to the free PDF, get the physical copy when it comes out on Amazon, And then when you read it and take action on the action steps, send photos of you with the book, send me photos of results, send me videos of results, send me text of results. Just show me the results you get and show me the successes that you get from the book. I'd love to hear from you all. You'll get access to the school group and you can hang out with all other Polymath producers in the world in there, and we'll all be taking action on these action steps and mastering the language of music production.